Are you feeling nervous about moving your family to a whole new city? Well, wipe that sweat from under your armpits or your brow, whatever. Because we're going to talk about some things that can help ease the transition and make it effortless. And not just effortless, but truly probably the best decision for sure, most definitely, maybe potentially
100.5%.
100.5% minus maybe 12 plus 3, the best decision you've ever made in your life. Because it's Colorado Springs.
It's Colorado Springs.
And the place is awesome. I'm gonna interject my own self and my own thought train. I was watching some videos of like, you know, living in this city, living in that city, and like the cons videos of like, it was actually Houston. I was watching these videos about like why you should or shouldn't move to Houston. And they were like, the cons were so heavy. I was like, yeah, I'm never moving to Houston. Literally ever.
Like you got to tell people the negative, but easy a little
bit. Yeah, I was like, no, that place sounds terrible. But we have a really hard time with that here in Colorado
We have
Springs.
to reach for those cons.
Yeah, but anywho, people do move to Colorado Springs, and some people have never moved in their whole life, and sometimes it's their first move or it's their first time moving, and like they're gonna be first time home buyers, or it's just, they're just unfamiliar with the area. So we kind of want to walk you through how we would not only help, but how we'd recommend kind of going about the move process.
Definitely,
right?
Definitely. And it's going to be a little bit longer, so kind of stay with us here. Let me also say that if there's anything we don't answer, call, text, email, reach out. Like that's what we're here for, is to help you guys out to make this transition. Number one thing, make a trip to Colorado Springs. If at all possible, you can get a lot of great information from YouTube videos, cruising the interwebs. You can get a lot of info, but man, there's nothing like boots on the ground, actually seeing the city, seeing the sites that we talk about every day, and really just getting to know the niche areas of Colorado Springs to figure out exactly where you want to be. We definitely have clients that they head here just for more information and they land in a great spot. They love where they're at. But for me, it's kind of stressful. And this is about non-stressful transitions.
Yeah, it is. It can be stressful. I will say this though, because like it's not practical that like every family can like take a 3-day trip. You know, maybe they're in Alaska, maybe they're in Hawaii.
Yeah.
In fact, I have some clients moving out here from Hawaii at the end of this month. They can't just make a day trip out here or a weekend trip. And so I think what's imperative about that is the next point, which is find some locals. Hello, us. But it's not just like asking, well, which neighborhood is nice? Which one am I gonna like? I think where I've had the most success with people moving out here is having conversations and really getting to know each other and like really diving in on like, well, what is it that you care about?
Right, yeah, what's important?
But it's also a little bit of like, some of the things we talk about is like past experience. Where do you live now?
Yeah.
What's it like? What do you like about where you live and what do you not like? When you move to Colorado, what excites you? What is like sparking joy? What are you looking for? Because some people, it is this, right? It's this
bad.
And it's the mountains and they want to have trails in the neighborhood and they're looking for a certain feel. And other people, they don't really care that much about that. And so as we have those conversations, it helps us help you kind of narrow some things down. So
100%.
And it's much better than just watching videos.
That's the thing, having that like detailed conversation. I know you've had the same experience. Like there's folks that we talk to that are thinking about moving to Colorado Springs and they get here, they've never visited. And just through those conversations, we've made recommendations that they would have never thought about just because we've learned like, hey, what do you like to do after work and on the weekends? Do you know, like how many kiddos do you have in your family, if any? All those details. And we know the city so well that local expert can really dial you in with the right area that maybe you weren't even thinking about from the research that you've done.
Literally just had this conversation the other day. I was talking to that family that's moving here from Hawaii. And we were on the phone for a good while and they were telling me that what they wanted was a neighborhood that had like high walkability, trails. You know, they wanted like easy stuff, you know, for their dog to run around and play. And they just like, he kept saying like, a nice neighborhood. I'm like, okay, well, there's a million nice neighborhoods. But as we continue to talk, I, in my brain, start like Xing out, like, we don't even need to look here.
You like got the visual map up in your head, and you're like just getting rid of
and you're
places.
just like, Well, it was funny because then, just as an example, they were like, okay, so what about Cimarron Hills? Because he's gonna work at Peterson.
Yep.
And I was able to say, professionally, based off of what you have told me about what you want and what sparks joy in your life, Cimarron Hills ain't it. And look, I live in Cimarron Hills, which is also why I can say that, because I want the same kind of things that they do. And so I was just like,
Yeah.
So we can just help you kind of steer clear. Is it ultimately way better though if you can just make a trip out here?
If you can.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's just not always feasible.
Always practical, yeah, for sure. So make a trip if you can. If not, hook up with a local expert early on in the process, just when you're thinking about it. The third one I'm thinking of, this is kind of crazy to have to say it, but we see people that don't do this, is get a job. A lot of people, I think they're so excited, like, let's get to Colorado. They get here, they're like, I don't even have a job. How am I gonna get housing now? How am I gonna do anything? So just, Colorado Springs has a pretty boomy economy, in my opinion. There's a lot of different industries that are expanding pretty rapidly. So there's a lot of job opportunity, but start that process before you get here to minimize some stress.
Well, I think the other thing is because a lot of people bring up commute time, right?
Yeah, you don't know where you're working at and stuff to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's like, well, if you're moving here and you don't know where you're gonna work, it's becomes that much harder to figure out where you're gonna live.
Right, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Because a lot of people, they're like, well, I don't want this super long commute, but in Colorado Springs, it's kind of hard to avoid having a commute less than like 20 to 25 minutes.
I tell everybody, everything in Colorado Springs is 20 minutes away.
It really is.
It really kind of seems like that. Now, if you're on the west side and you're working out at Schriever Air Force Base, that's probably maybe not the best decision. Yeah,
yeah, that's a little bit of a haul.
You can do it, but I actually have a friend that lives up the pass in Cascade that works out at Schriever. It's like an hour drive every day. I wouldn't want to do that, but those are the important things to figure out ahead of time.
But interestingly enough, so I have another client that's moving here actually from Canada, and he works kind of in like over in the Briargate area. But again, and he wants like this short commute time, but then based off of like what's important to him and his wife in their life, right? And their everyday outside of work, it was like, hey, Briargate is awesome. Based on what you're telling me, I think we should shift our focus a little bit more west to Rock Rimmon.
Yeah,
I'm
still super close.
I was like, yep. Yeah. I was like, it's gonna increase the commute time a little bit, but for what you're looking for your everyday life. Anywho, so yeah, having your job sorted out and kind of knowing where you're going. By the way, not to mention, if you are trying to buy a home and you don't have a job lined up,
makes it tough.
Yeah, it just makes it tough to even get approved for a loan. So,
and a lot of times, not even just because the rental market is so competitive, which let's talk about that, right? The rental buying kind of decision. Even the rental market's so difficult right now that a lot of property management companies, they want to see some pay stubs. They don't want to just do the credit check. They want to see some pay stubs to make sure you actually are gainfully employed. So it's not just for buying, it's for renting as well. And that's another big decision, that whenever you make a transition, housing obviously is a huge point of it. Are you definitely trying to buy a house when you get here, or are you going to rent for a little bit? Do you plan to just rent the whole time you're in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, this topic, I mean, we have a whole video Francis and I did about buying versus renting. So we'll link that down below if you're kind of working through that. Because the ultimate answer is like, it depends.
Yeah.
Renting can be such a pain. Now I get it though, like economically, it does make sense in some respects.
There are times when it does, yeah.
And I'm also, like we were talking about, like you don't know the area. And so look, sometimes it does make sense to just be like, I'm gonna move there and rent, medium-term rental for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So I can kind of learn the area. Where's the gym that I like going to? What about the grocery store? What are the activities that I know what I want to do,
right?
But what are the activities that I actually do?
What am I actually going to do?
And so after that short period of time, I think usually between like 4 and 6 months, really, people like have an idea of like where they really do want to live and not live. But that being said, if you're moving here with the family, which is what this is about, it's really hard to find a medium or short-term rental for your family.
Yeah.
Right?
So so much harder than it used to be, yeah.
Well, yeah, because like a single family home, for example, is not gonna have less than a 12-month lease.
Right, yeah.
I don't remember the last time that I saw it. Now, you could try to negotiate it, but right now, like it's summertime, and so it's like peak moving season where people are moving in. And so, for example, if I was a landlord and your family approached me and you're like, hey, we're moving out there, we want to buy eventually, blah, blah, blah. Can we do a 6-month lease in your single family home? And we'll pay it all up front or whatever. Right. I would say no, they're like, yeah, but your thing's been sitting for like, and I'd be like, yeah, but 6 months from now, it's going to be the worst,
Nobody wants
the
to
worst
rent a
time
place
in the
in.
market.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So it's just, it's really hard to find it for a single family home. Now you could go hop into an apartment for a little bit.
And we have clients that are doing that right
Yep.
now. They're having a home built. They're doing the apartment thing, but that's a tough move when you have
3 kids, 4
2 or
kids.
3, 4 kids, right? Yeah, and you're in your single family home back in the Midwest or whatever, and now all of a sudden you're going to cram into this 2-bedroom apartment for 3 months.
No, what you could do is you could rent 2 apartments.
There
Put
you
the
go.
kids in their own, depending on their age. You know, $1,200. It's basically your mortgage anyway. It's just, now that being said, there are a lot of new build apartments, actually.
There's a ton of apartment options.
There's a
yeah.
lot of apartment options. Furnishedfinder.com, if you've never heard of that, that has medium-term rentals
Yeah.
that are, as the name implies, fully furnished. And actually,
medium-term.
they're like really, really nice.
I would say that, so Furnish Finder, I feel like it's this little niche-y product that most people don't even think about.
No.
And I'll be honest, the only reason that I think or know much about it is I actually have some rental, not in Colorado Springs, but I have some properties that we rent out to traveling nurses, traveling professionals, and it's on Furnish Finder. And you're right, the properties on there, like, they're nice properties because they're usually rented out to traveling professionals, so they kind of have a little bit higher feel to them in a lot of cases. That's a great source to find like that 30-day to 6-month rental.
Yeah,
Furnish Finder,
and it's an easier place to look than like Airbnb or Vrbo.
which you're gonna pay more for, yeah.
Which, number one, you're gonna pay more for, and then also it's like you might find a place that you like and you're like, I wanna book this out for, 60 days or whatever, but like they already have a weekend
It's like one
booked
weekend
right
in-
in the middle.
yeah.
So Furnish Finder is designed minimum 30-day rentals. In fact, I was looking at some with a client the other day, and they were like 2-bedroom, 1 bath, so not for a small family like what we've been talking about, but
single couple.
and they were
yeah.
like $1,800 to $2,100.
Yeah.
So you obviously expect that you're going to be paying a little bit more because it's a short-term lease,
Yep.
medium-term lease technically.
Yeah.
And it's fully furnished. So how do you do that then? It's like, you move here and you throw your stuff in storage is what I would
That's
do.
the thing. You're gonna do kind of the double move, right? Like everybody wants to go from the house you're at to the house you're gonna be here,
Yeah.
whether you're renting or buying. I would say at least 5 out of 10 times that doesn't happen. There's
Yeah.
a double move somewhere in there unless the stars perfectly aligned. So I think mentally preparing for, hey, like Kyle said, I'm gonna take my stuff, I'm gonna put it in storage. And then after we get into our permanent house, then we're gonna move everything from storage. But it's a lot more convenient instead of, you move into that apartment and then you're unboxing half of your stuff, trying to find your plates and your silverware, and then you're putting the rest of the stuff in storage. That furnished rental unit for that interim period can be a huge blessing.
I was trying to find, because moving sucks. It's like one of my least favorite things ever, honestly. And I can't remember, there's a couple, Blake's Moving Service is one that a client has used here. She was an elderly lady. She sold her home. She was moving back to New York, and she called Blake's Moving Service. And she said she had a great experience. They showed up. They were super efficient. They were quick,
nice,
on
yeah.
time, and they just like packed everything up and moved it.
Yeah.
So that's super helpful. I know that there's a couple more. I would honestly just get on the Google machine and type in.
Look for the
moving
5-star
service.
reviews.
Yeah, there's quite a few here in Colorado Springs. I've had a couple clients with good experiences. I just can't remember all of them. But that's what I would do. So like if you're moving your stuff into a storage unit, which are all over the freaking place
It's being
here.
built every day.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Just get some help, right? Like it'll just alleviate the burden. Again, the point of this video is to have a stress-free
Smooth transition.
smooth, right?
Yep.
And part of that is like, is it worth $100 or whatever
Whatever it is, yeah.
to not like throw your back out or have your 7-year-old on the other end of the couch and you're like
Always
"Ah."
a recipe for success.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, the last one that we're gonna touch at this location is, okay, do you really need to become a Colorado resident?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? And it's different because like everybody's moving here for different purposes. A lot of military people are PCSing here. Why would you become a Colorado resident? There's one reason. If you're in the military, well, there's 2 reasons. One is if you're coming from a state that has insanely high income tax, then just for the sake of having maybe a
Saving
little
money.
bit lower, it's not that like Colorado has no tax. It's not like Oregon or Texas
Illinois, Florida.
that have no income tax.
It is just over 4% in Colorado state income tax, which is lower than a lot of places across the country. So depending on where you're coming from, that could save you a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure. So that would be one, like if there's need for that. But really the only other main reason that if you're moving your family out here for whatever reason to become a Colorado resident is so that you can be a Colorado resident for hunting.
It's a big thing.
Because it's
a lot of
way
dollars.
cheaper. It's way cheaper, higher likelihood of drawing. And then so even if you're in the military and you end up PCSing away, like you can continue just building up points over the years and while you're deploying.
So you can come back,
Otherwise, it's,
vehicles are a little bit more expensive to register than most states. I don't know what the average is. It's based on the value of the vehicle. So I don't know, maybe $400 or $500 a year, it seems like. That's what a lot of it is. I mean, it's a lot more expensive than a lot of places. So that's a downfall for changing residency. So you just got to kind of weigh that stuff out. And then a lot of times also, you know, depending on how long you're going to be here, I don't even know if you're non-military, like how long you can go working in a state without being a resident of that state.
I think kind of indefinitely. Well, I don't know either because I did it as military. I think you can kind of do it indefinitely, but you are still going to be paying state taxes.
State tax for where you're at.
Because you have to technically apply for state residency or whatever. Actually, bonus, just something to be prepared for. This has nothing to do with making your move smoother, but you mentioned it with like car registration and stuff like that, which, you know, you just go to the DMV's website. But be prepared for insurance. Car insurance out here, mine, like it increased like 110%.
Is it a lot more?
Oh my God.
Also, I've been in Colorado for almost 20 years now, so I don't really remember that transition.
I came up here and no kidding, my insurance for my truck increased 110%.
Holy
I was paying like $500 a year or something like that. I pay like $1,100 a year.
The hail maybe?
That's what it is. That's what it is.
The hail damage.
And there's been, and this year, like if you ever thought like, maybe the hail's been fine, this year it has hailed. I mean, I've seen more hail than I've ever seen in my whole life. Truthfully.
It was June, like the middle of June, and I had hail piled up at the house like 1.5 feet.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna insert that video. There's been like videos up in Denver of like rivers of hail. Or the other day I was driving home and it was like little pebbles of hail that were like, it looked like snow.
Yeah, it just looks like it snowed in the middle of the summertime,
So anyway, that does not have anything to do with making your move smoother. But taxes, we are gonna talk about in a little bit because like once you do buy a house, we will touch on the way that taxes work here. Now, generally speaking, they're lower as property taxes. They're actually pretty low in Colorado Springs. But we're gonna talk through why that's true and also not true.
But we'll do that. It's not as true as it used to be.
It's not as true as it once was, Doug. So stay tuned because that's the next big piece.
More coming up.